So Florida State's really getting a head start on the offseason because, well, what in the world would you want to try to continue this season for? You talk about limping to the finish line. Florida State's taking every single negative connotation or jab that you've ever made at a college football program. They're taking it to a whole new level. They play Charleston Southern after their bye this week, and I hope and pray they win that football game. It's the last time the Seminoles are going to win a football game in the year 2024. The good news is Mike Norvell will be back in 2025 and probably 2026. Because if you remember, if you wind the clocks back to, I don't know, January, there was this guy who retired. He's now a pundit on College Game Day. His name's Nick Saban, and he used to coach at the University of Alabama. And so when that job came open, a lot of guys were tied to it. Lane Kiffin, Steve Sarkisian, Dan Lanning. Of course, Kalen DeBoer ends up getting the job. But someone whose hat was thrown into the ring was Mike Norvell. Because Florida State had fallen upon tough times, and Norvell had them coming off a conference championship season, which they felt they were snubbed out of the college football playoff, which I didn't think they were, because either way you looked at it, whether they got an opportunity to play or not, they were a Jordan Travis injury away from being a national championship caliber team. A lot of those guys that were on that team, they're playing on Sundays, and they're doing quite well. Jared Verse, that guy's a monster. That guy's a monster. Keon Coleman, he's one of the top targets for Josh Allen. That was a really, really good team. This year's team could not be any more opposite. So 3 coaches have been fired. Offensive coordinator and offensive line coach Alex Atkins, defensive coordinator Adam Fuller, and wide receivers coach Ron Dugans each have been relieved of their duties. Florida State has a bye this week, and they play Charleston Southern next week, and then Florida the following week. That game against Florida is one that before the year I would have said, oh, FSU's got it. Florida's not any good. That's going to be a battle of who's worse in the Sunshine State, which is a sad state of affairs because Florida's a hotbed, but Miami's the best team in that state right now. And, well, I don't think it's particularly close, even after their loss to Georgia Tech. So Mike Norvell is seeking a new offensive defensive coordinator and a wide receivers coach. And there are a couple of questions that pop into my mind when I heard that those openings were going to arrive. Number one, are Florida State fans prepared to ride out the storm with Mike Norvell? These are not moves that get made when there's a feeling that, the coach might be next. The coach could be gone soon. No, Dave Aranda still has a job at Baylor. And Dave Aranda, by the way, is saving his job in Waco. He was a hot seat guy coming into this year. He's 5-4, going to win at least one game down the stretch and make a bowl game, which they failed to do last season. And he's going to continue to be Baylor's head coach for at least another year. But Mike Norvell, because of the Alabama search, got an 8-year, $84 million extension because Florida State said, whoa, we don't want to let this guy get away. He did such a great job. And it's reminiscent of a baseball player that, particularly with the LA Angels, that gets a big contract after doing well previously. And then after said contract, crash and burn, and it just doesn't go well. Albert Pujols, Anthony Rendon, just to name a couple for the Angels in there. But Mike Norvell is going to be the Florida State head coach for the next several years. Florida State fans, if you haven't accepted that already, you better. You can call for his job online in a forum or a Twitter comment or YouTube comment, wherever, all you want. He's not going anywhere. He's sticking around. So the next question that pops into my mind is, who would want to go be the Florida State offensive or defensive coordinator right now? And when you glance at that job or you hear about that prospect and think about your coordinators, this especially applies to any stellar coordinators in the state. This applies to any stellar coordinators at good schools that are good brands in the ACC or otherwise, but might not be at the same level as Florida State, might not be offering the same level financially as Florida State. I would think about guys like the Georgia Tech offensive coordinator. If Mike Norvell could go get him, I think that guy's really good. There are other guys that pop into my head. That's just one. There are several. But you might look at Florida State right now and say, well, they're terrible. They're in disarray. They're awful. They're not any good. Yeah, that's true. But the same mindset that applies to head coaches who take what are quote unquote bad jobs, it absolutely applies to quote unquote bad coordinator jobs. Well, I wouldn't want to go be a part of that rebuild over there, really? You're going to go to Florida State University where you could make more money than where you currently are, number one. And then number two, if you help rebuild the side of the ball you are brought in to coordinate, you will have the opportunity to get more looks than you otherwise might have to be a head coach somewhere. That sort of shift, that sort of turnaround helps grab a lot of attention. So I bring this up to say that if you're a fan of a team and you like your coordinator, and all of you are a fan of some team out there, but if you like your coordinators and you don't think that your team's brand is as strong as Florida State, or that you can offer to pay as much for coordinators as Florida State can, you should have that thought in the back of your mind of, hey, we're having a good year. This guy's been really good over there. Yeah, he would make a lateral move. Because most of the time, not all the time, but most of the time, coordinators at the Power 4 level are only leaving to go become head coaches somewhere. That could be at a group of 5. That could be at a team within their own conference, right? Think Kenny Dillingham going from Oregon to Arizona State. Stays in the conference, goes to a smaller brand, but it's his alma mater, and he's getting an opportunity to be a head coach. I think you will see coaches leave to become coordinators here at Florida State, or at least you could, that you don't think off the top of your mind, why would they go over there? Florida State's a train wreck right now. Well, just because they're not living up to their full potential this season doesn't mean they can't do it again. Mike Norvell and the Florida State administration feel that 2 offensive and 1 defensive coach are a big part of the reason why it's not going particularly well this season. Time will tell. Time will tell. But getting a head start on it, I think this is the right move. Sinking your teeth into this season's stuff. I would have done this a while ago. I mean, I called for DJ Uyunglele to be benched several weeks before he was actually benched. There was the finger injury and such, but that was going to arrive sooner or later because I realized pretty early on, oh yeah, this Florida State team sucks. I thought they'd be good before the year, me and everybody else in college football, because they added a bunch of transfer talent. The NFL draft scouting community had given their defensive line one of the best grades in the country, and yet they couldn't pressure quarterbacks or stop the run consistently. Georgia Tech showed that in week 1, and it just keeps getting worse. Notre Dame drugged them 52-3. I mean, just drug them straight through the mud. Drug, I don't even care. English is a dumb language anyway. That was a complete and utter beat down again. And by the way, for those of you that haven't checked in on Florida State in a while, allow me to read you their scores since the last time you probably heard about them. So you saw the Georgia Tech game. You saw them lose to Boston College and Memphis. They beat Cal. And then once they got housed by SMU and lost to Clemson, you probably thought, all right, I don't need to pay attention to this anymore. It's a mess. Duke beats them 23-16. That's the closest game they've played. Miami, 36-14. Miami has a tendency to play everybody tight, not Florida State. They're not good enough for that. North Carolina, who could have a coaching vacancy at the end of this year, 35-11. Notre Dame, 52-3. Oh, boy. Offensive point totals, again, 21, 13, 12, 14, 16, 13, 16, 14, 11, and 3. I pray they can hit 20 points for the second time this year against Charleston Southern. For the sake of Florida State fans everywhere, I don't know that they will. I'll leave you with this. Do not forget that Florida State and Clemson are still suing to try to leave the ACC so that they can get into the SEC of the Big Ten. They're about to have a 2-10 season playing in the ACC, but you want to go play against better competition on average every week, with higher rated recruits with somewhere like the SEC or an 18-team conference in the Big Ten. That's what you want to do, huh? The grass is not always greener. I don't know if this season will influence the financial motivations that drove Florida State and Clemson to be here in the first place, and just the cachet that comes with being in one of the Power 2 leagues, one of the top 2 leagues in the country. But boy, Florida State's got to make you wonder, well, we're going to rebuild this thing. It's not going to take 1 year. It's going to take a couple years. It's going to take a couple. Do you want to do that in the SEC? You do that at your own peril. You do that at your own peril. I'm not advising you to do that, but that's something that is still going on. Appreciate everyone listening. I'll see you next time, and until then, hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.